Lord Linlithgow, the Viceroy of India, adjusted his ceremonial solar toupee in the year 1939. The air in New Delhi was thick with humidity and murmurings of 370 million restless subjects. The mood inside the Viceroy's house was, to His Excellency's mind, positively electric. War had broken out in Europe, and the challenge of upholding the empire had fallen. The grand challenge had fallen squarely upon his very capable shoulders at that time. Splendid. Absolutely splendid, Linlithgow muttered to his private secretary, Mr. Davies. Mr. Davies looked rather less splendid and far more terrified than His Excellency did. Indeed, Your Excellency, though I must confess, the response to the mobilization orders, the response has not been entirely what one might call unanimous cheers and tea parties. Linlithgow scoffed, taking a long, deliberate sip of iced tea, and spoke to Mr. Davies. Nonsense, Davies. You are looking at the small picture of calling upon the jewel. We are calling upon the jewel in the imperial crown to defend democracy right now. We must stand shoulder to shoulder with king and country in the fabled lands of India. Affection for His Britannic Majesty is nowhere stronger than right here in India. They will be lining up around the block, eager to join the fray. Linlithgow believed, Linlithgow, whose understanding of his massive dominion seemed to be sourced from travelogues. He saw India not as a volatile cauldron, but as a colossal reservoir of manpower. Had not they enacted the benevolent policy of Indianization for years in the Raj? The Raj had been permitting a token handful of natives to assume greater control. Destiny involved marching into battle under exclusive white command, led by Indians. These reforms, Linlithgow assured Davies, were magnanimous steps towards self-rule. The reality was that they were token concessions, designed to mollify nationalist rumblings. Britannia ruled the Indians just as she ruled the waves, which was a simple fact. The mobilization commenced, pulling nearly 2.5 million men into service over the years. The princes of the princely states descended upon New Delhi like vultures smelling opportunity. They collectively governed roughly 1/3 of India's population at that time. They viewed the rising tide of Indian nationalism as an existential threat to them. If the British left, the crowns of the Maharajas would likely follow immediately. Linlithgow hosted a magnificent dinner where princes vied for attention with zeal. My Lord Viceroy boomed. The Maharaja of Nawanagar, a man draped in enough silk. I shall furnish 3 battalions of infantry, ready to fight the Hun or the Nip. I chirped a prince whose estate was mostly desert. We'll present a check to the Air Ministry. A 6-figure sum is a gesture of undying loyalty to His Majesty the King. Linlithgow beamed, shaking hands vigorously, calling it a most touching display. Your Highnesses, your sacrifice shall not be forgotten, Linlithgow declared to them. In the corner, Davies leaned in, remarking that they seemed positively eager to help. Of course they are, Davies, for they understand the stakes, Linlithgow replied. Also, they want us to protect them from Gandhi as their insurance policy against independence. They are buying relevance, old boy, and we are happy to sell it to them right now. The first year of the war passed relatively quietly in India, leading to an attitude. Linlithgow privately enjoyed the feeling of being in a grandstand watching a game. While most Indians were ambivalent, the politicians demanded steps towards self-rule. Linlithgow dismissed the politicians as noise and focused on the lack of economy. In 1940, London reached an agreement with the Raj that sounded breathtakingly generous. London would foot the bill for India's massive war expenses and infrastructure. Linlithgow gathered his economic advisors, puffing out his chest regarding the investment. See, gentlemen, London understands the importance of our jewel, so prosperity is assured. One rather pale advisor, Mr. Henderson, cleared his throat nervously to speak up. Your Excellency, with all due respect, London is paying their debts with sterling credits. They are forcing India to front the actual cash now devastating our domestic economy. It is not payment, sir. It is a colossal, interest-free loan we extend to ourselves. Linlithgow waved a dismissive hand, telling him to think of it as patriotic accounting. It ensures that the great breadbasket of our far-off jewel keeps us in raw materials. We are streamlining the capital flow, and no sacrifice is too great for victory. Linlithgow enacted the Defense of India Act, granting power to crack down on dissent. It choked off nationalist activity and ensured complete political and economic control. The priorities were to focus on the war and absolutely maintain the Raj forever. For 2 years, the war remained a distant affair until December 1941 arrived. Imperial Japan dumped a bucket of icy water directly onto the subcontinent's head. Pearl Harbor was swiftly followed by a terrifying East Asian blitzkrieg operation. Colony after colonial government toppled like dominoes, including Hong Kong and Singapore. The Japanese carved a beachhead into India's neighbor Burma, seizing the capital. Linlithgow's grandstand view had vanished, and Bengal was first on the block. Panic began to seep into the corridors of New Delhi as refugees poured in from Burma. "We must restore calm," Linlithgow shouted in a tense cabinet meeting while pacing. "We cannot allow the Japanese to inherit a functional, resource-rich province." The Raj made the fatal bureaucratic error that would define Linlithgow's legacy. Wright Davies summarized the plan. Linlithgow commanded, reviewing a map with red X's. Operation Denial involves seizing all food stockpiles and destroying bridges. The goal is to ensure that if the Japanese invade Bengal, they inherit nothing but ruin. "Excellent and necessary military precaution," Linlithgow declared, ignoring the voice. "They will be denied sustenance, mobility, and local support." Linlithgow concluded they were denied all right, but the Japanese decided not to advance into a ruin. The only victims of Operation Denial were the people of Bengal, who suffered greatly. The year 1942 saw the beginning of the Bengal famine, and the system collapsed. Government forces seized food stockpiles, and fishermen were denied their craft. London continued to pull tons of rice from India, despite desperate begging for aid. Linlithgow, sequestered in his comfortable residence, tried to manage the narrative. "The famine is a dreadful business, but largely the fault of freak weather," he wrote. "The sheer numbers of Burmese refugees have not helped matters," Linlithgow noted. The numbers were not minor, as between 2 and 3 million people would die. Davies reported looking visibly ill, that the reports from the field are horrific. Dr. Mukherjee notes, "Corpses scattered over thousands of square miles in the region. We are seeing a complete breakdown of family units and husbands abandoning wives." Linlithgow frowned, tapping his pen, stating, "We must ensure this stays out of the press. We cannot afford the negative publicity, not while we are fighting the Axis powers." In this hellscape of starvation and disease, the political landscape sharpened its teeth. Linlithgow faced his fiercest enemy at home, the relentless lawyer, Mohandas K. Gandhi. Indian nationalism intensified, rapidly becoming a matter of India versus the Raj. The discussion was dominated by Gandhi's Indian National Congress and the Muslim League. Communal tensions were so intense that some nationalists were driven to extremes. Subhas Chandra Bose concluded that Britain's difficulty was India's opportunity. Bose traveled to the Axis powers, forming the Indian National Army to fight. "Give me blood, and I will give you freedom," Bose famously promised his recruits. Linlithgow dismissed Bose as a lunatic fringe, but dissatisfaction reached a boiling point. In August 1942, the INC issued the Quit India Resolution, demanding independence. Linlithgow saw this as the ultimate act of treachery and a lack of decorum. "While we are defending the world, this little man demands we simply pack up our trunks? Gentlemen, we cannot negotiate with terrorists, even if they talk about nonviolence. We will crush this sedition immediately and arrest Gandhi and every INC leader." The arrests were swift, and Gandhi was thrown into prison for 3 long years. Linlithgow leaned back, feeling a surge of decisive pride regarding political stability. Unfortunately, Gandhi's exhortation for peaceful protest was utterly ignored. The independence movement, leaderless and enraged, chose violence in Bombay. The Raj cracked down with brutal efficiency, and 2,500 Indians were killed. Linlithgow congratulated himself on having stamped out the unrest with an iron fist. While Linlithgow fought his own population, the Indian army fought the Japanese. Many units, realizing the urgency of the moment, became surprisingly progressive. When Indian peers proved their mettle, acceptance followed in the field of battle. By the end of the war, 2.5 million Indians would serve as a critical component. In December 1942, Indian troops managed to reclaim some of Burma from the enemy. The Japanese taught the Raj a bloody lesson by bombing Calcutta for several days. In March 1944, Operation You Go commenced, involving intense fighting along the border. The Indian troops fighting on the doorstep of their own country stood their ground. They fought with a tenacity that surprised even their British commanders. The pro-Axis Indian National Army fighting alongside the Japanese was defeated. By July, the Japanese were forced to break off the attack, retreating in disarray. Linlithgow, reviewing the victory reports, beamed at the triumph of loyalty. See Davies, they fought and held the line, so the war in the East is turning. Davies, looking over the casualty lists, merely nodded wearily at the Viceroy. One wonders if they were fighting for the king or simply for their homes. By May 1945, the Indian army had successfully captured the Burmese capital. The end could not have come soon enough, for the country Linlithgow protected was shattered. Food shortages were still rampant, despite the official end of the Bengal famine. The immediate demobilization of war workers led to an epidemic of unemployment. Members of the INA were arrested, but public outcry prevented their prosecution. The Indians saw Bose's men not as traitors, but as legitimate freedom fighters. Linlithgow was forced to concede, sparing many from prosecution to avoid riots. The political prisoners, including Gandhi, had to be released from prison. In the lavish drawing rooms of New Delhi, the discussions on statehood began. Linlithgow, the man who had promised the empire would hold, found himself helpless. Independence was no longer a question of if, but rather a question of how. The irony was not lost on Linlithgow, though he maintained a stiff upper lip. He had successfully mobilized 2.5 million men and guaranteed the Allied victory. He had brutally suppressed a national uprising and maintained absolute control. In doing so, he had guaranteed the immediate loss of the colony he governed. The economic devastation and the colossal death toll shattered any remaining goodwill. Lord Linlithgow had created the perfect catalyst for freedom through his actions. He watched in despair as the negotiations bogged down over the toxic inheritance. Jinnah was resolute that the League would not become second-class citizens. So Davies Linlithgow sighed, staring out at the humid New Delhi sky in despair. We won the global war, crushed the Axis, and now we must immediately lose our colony? This was not in the Imperial Governance Handbook, Linlithgow complained. No, Your Excellency, Davies mumbled, noting that it is a rather messy victory. Messy is a huge understatement, because it is a catastrophe, Linlithgow exclaimed. We will be remembered as the chaps who presided over the starvation of millions. Linlithgow poured himself a very stiff gin as the difficult discussions concluded. The colonial territory would be divided into India and the Muslim states. The Viceroy's tenure was ending, but the true tragedy was just beginning. The final brutal chapter of the Raj was about to be written in blood and fire. Pip, pip, cheerio.